I can still hear their laughter, crisp and cruel against the marble walls. 5 men in bespoke suits stood clustered around the fireplace, raising their glasses and trading barbs about my hopeless career. They didn't know I was the one who built the empire they prided themselves on. They didn't suspect that I, Serena Blackwood, was the secret force behind Novatech's meteoric rise. Tonight, they toasted my failure. Tomorrow, they'd face their own reckoning. Caleb Turner, Novatech's CMO and my husband's closest confidant, snapped, "How's life in that bottom-rung consultancy of yours? Still chasing clients who'll never pay?" His words, sharp, mocking, cut through the chandelier glow like a blade. I felt my pulse steady as I raised my own crystal glass, every drop of champagne a promise of what was to come. 12 years ago, I arrived in this city with nothing but a laptop and a vision. Today, I owned the company they all served, each title, each corner office, purchased through layers of shell companies and strategic backchannels. Behind me, Brandon Hart, the COO who believed himself Novatech's co-founder, laughed heartily and recounted tales of my supposed failures. Every jest they cracked had been catalogued, every inflated travel expense, every hushed sexist remark, every suppressed complaint now stored in a dossier that would shatter their illusions at dawn. Across the room, CEO-in-waiting Marcus Lee leaned in, smirking, certain he held all the power. He had no idea how carefully I'd orchestrated this moment, how patiently I'd waited for their blind spots to emerge. If you've ever sat at a table where your voice was dismissed and your worth underestimated, stay with me. This is not just a story of revenge. It's a lesson in strategy, secrecy, and the quiet strength that builds empires from the shadows. In hours, these men will learn what happens when the hunted reveals herself as the hunter. And by the time Novatech's doors open tomorrow, their world will be irrevocably changed. 12 years ago, Novatech was nothing more than a name scribbled on a scrap of paper in a cramped coffee shop. Serena Blackwood had arrived in Silicon Valley with little more than a battered laptop, a heart full of ambition, and a vow never to be powerless again. Her father's small manufacturing business had been swallowed whole by aggressive corporate takeovers, leaving her family bankrupt and broken. From that ruin, she forged a single guiding principle: control the narrative or be consumed by it. Serena launched Novatech under a web of discrete holding companies, each one more innocuous sounding than the last. She filed patents through shell entities, routed investments via offshore accounts, and hired a public face to charm the media and investors, an enigmatic figure known only as Ava Sinclair. Ava hosted glossy press events, gave carefully curated interviews, and cultivated relationships with key venture capitalists, while Serena remained in the shadows, orchestrating every move with meticulous precision. The core leadership team believed they were co-creators of Novatech's success. First among them was Caleb Turner, Novatech's charismatic chief marketing officer, who reveled in the applause whenever Ava Sinclair took a bow. Turner bragged at board meetings about his innovative campaigns that had skyrocketed user growth. He never suspected that every campaign budget, every viral launch, was engineered and financed from Serena's private coffers, hidden behind a labyrinth of corporate veils. Then there was Brandon Hart, the company's COO and Serena's husband of 6 years, though in truth he knew far less than he believed. Hart strutted through Novatech's hallways as if he'd invented the very technology that powered their flagship products. His strategy sessions were legendary. If you asked him, he'd tell you he'd saved Novatech from the brink more than once. He had no idea that Serena's team of financial analysts had quietly taken control of the firm's true financial health, reallocating resources through shadow budgets and discrete fund transfers. Marcus Lee, Novatech's engineering director, carried himself like a titan of code. He bragged to colleagues about his breakthrough algorithms and privately claimed that Ava Sinclair's public face was a mere puppet. What he failed to recognize was that Serena had hired the brightest minds under his leadership, funding every prototype, every round of testing, knowledge he believed he'd discovered on his own. Supporting them all was Emma Chen, head of human resources, who suppressed countless complaints about discrimination and harassment within the inner circle. She maintained a veneer of compassion, but her loyalty lay with those she believed were indispensable architects of Novatech's rise. In reality, every HR file she buried was another piece of evidence Serena collected, each complaint revealing cracks in the arrogance that held the company together. Behind closed doors, Serena had assembled a small inner council, Nadia Vale, her former business partner turned chief security officer, Ramon Alvarez, a forensic accountant who tracked every dollar in and out, and Aisha Khan, a cybersecurity specialist who monitored internal communications. Together, they built an encrypted archive, emails showing Caleb's misleading metrics, expense reports proving Brandon's inflated travel claims, code repositories revealing Marcus's appropriation of open-source libraries without attribution, and HR records evidencing Emma's cover-ups. Their motivations were varied. Caleb craved recognition and believed marketing genius was his alone. Brandon sought power and visibility in the CEO's chair. Marcus chased technical accolades. Emma feared losing her status and kept the peace at any cost. Each of them grew more arrogant with every round of applause, every bonus check, convinced that Novatech was theirs to shape. Serena watched it all unfold with detached amusement. She remembered nights spent alone poring over financial statements, coding prototypes in borrowed coffee shops, and forging client contracts under a pseudonym. She had sacrificed relationships, personal comfort, and public glory to create a foundation so solid that it could bear any weight, even the egos of those who thought they stood at its summit. Now, as she prepared to step into the light, Serena Blackwood carried not only her own legacy, but the fate of every boardroom jester who'd mocked her silent ascent. Tomorrow, those same men and women would discover that the empire they believed they'd built was, in fact, a carefully constructed edifice of Serena's making, and that the very authority they wielded was granted by the quiet architect they'd dismissed and underestimated. Before dawn broke over Silicon Valley, Serena Blackwood slipped into Novatech's service entrance, heart steady and purpose clear. The security guard, accustomed to Ava Sinclair's early arrivals for board events, barely glanced at her borrowed lanyard. Serena moved through dimly lit corridors, each step echoing softly against polished concrete, until she reached a concealed door behind the HR wing. Her hand hovered over the keypad, Nadia Vale's expertly forged credentials granting instant access. Inside the hidden office, 3 monitors flickered to life, illuminating Serena's determined face. Live feeds streamed from conference rooms, lobbies, and the executive elevator. A single screen displayed the encrypted calendar invitation, Novatech Board, Mandatory Leadership Retreat, 9 a.m. Unbeknownst to the executives, this retreat was the stage for their reckoning. A gentle chime signaled a message from Nadia. All systems go. Dossiers preloaded, display queues queued, board badges ready. Serena exhaled, fingers brushing the polished edge of the mahogany desk. On the wall, a silent clock ticked closer to 8:59. She reviewed the plan one last time. At precisely 9, the room would dim, the screens would reveal her true identity, and the evidence of months, years of misconduct would unfold. In the lobby, sunlight filtered through glass panels as the first board members arrived. Brandon Hart, still unwinding from last night's celebration, swaggered in with Marcus Lee at his side. They laughed about another late-night design demo, oblivious to Serena's presence mere yards away. Caleb Turner breezed past, phone in hand, nodding at the receptionist and eyeing the coffee bar. Emma Chen followed, clipboard clutched, already fielding questions about dress code and Wi-Fi access. Serena watched their confident strides from a live feed monitor. Each name flashed on her tablet with a list of offenses. Caleb's fabricated growth metrics, Brandon's misallocated travel funds, Marcus's code misappropriation, Emma's buried harassment complaints, and Turner's exaggerated marketing claims. With a final tap, she activated the first cue. Moments later, the conference room doors opened. The 6 executives filed in, greeting each other with casual banter. Serena, badge clipped to her lapel, slipped in behind them and took a seat at the far end of the table. They barely registered the new attendee, another late arrival for the retreat. Chairs scraped, hushed greetings passed, and Brandon quipped, "Hope this isn't another of Ava's surprise workshops." At exactly 9 o'clock, the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. Serena's pulse quickened as the Novatech logo transformed on the projector into her name, title, and photo. Serena Blackwood, founder and CEO. Confusion rippled through the assembled group. Cell phones hummed. Whispers grew louder. The moment had come. The board, expecting routine strategy discussions, found themselves caught in a trap they could neither anticipate nor escape. The boardroom lights snapped off, leaving only the glow of Serena Blackwood's presentation sliding across the wall. A hush fell as the Novatech logo faded, replaced by a single line of text. Serena Blackwood, founder and CEO. Chairs scraped, and eyes darted toward the head of the table, where Serena stood calm, badge clipped to her lapel. Brandon Hart, the self-appointed operations guru, swallowed hard. Marcus Lee, Novatech's pioneering head of engineering, straightened in his seat. Caleb Turner's confident posture crumpled, and Emma Chen clutched her notes as Fiona Wu blinked at the screen in disbelief. Dylan Shaw, the quiet financial strategist, stared at his reflection in the polished table surface. Serena's voice cut through the tension. "Good morning. Thank you all for joining this emergency session." She tapped the remote once. The screen split, revealing Caleb Turner's name alongside a chart of fabricated growth metrics. "Caleb, these projections you celebrated last quarter," she said softly, "were built on data you knowingly manipulated." The bar graph shattered into red flags marking each inflated report. Caleb's face went pale. He glanced at Marcus, who met his gaze with mounting disquiet. Serena advanced one slide. Brandon Hart's dossier appeared. Expense reports showing luxury travel billed as client meetings, annotated with timestamps and witness statements. "Brandon," Serena continued, "your gala hopping wasn't for networking. It was a personal perk at Novatech's expense." The audience shifted uncomfortably as each item scrolled into view. Emma Chen's file followed, multiple HR complaints buried under her authority, voices silenced and reports vanished. "Emma, these voices deserve to be heard," Serena intoned, "not erased." Fiona Wu exchanged a glance with Marcus, who exhaled as his own name and IP leak evidence populated the screen, prototypes shared beyond NDA walls. Silence pressed in as Dylan Shaw's section revealed unauthorized transfers disguised as vendor payments. His hands trembled over his tablet. Serena surveyed them all and pressed again. The screen tiled into 6 panels, each a damning record. Fabricated metrics, misallocated funds, intellectual property theft, suppressed complaints, personal enrichment, and overall conspiracy. Their panic rippled into whispering, hushed apologies, frantic adjustments of collars and ties, eyes darting toward the exit. Serena's tone remained measured. "You designed Novatech's success while building your own safety nets. Today, you face the consequences." Outside the mirrored antechamber, Nadia Vale watched the live feed, tablet in hand, ready to seal off every exit and deactivate each badge. Inside, the boardroom had become an arena of justice. The morning of reckoning had begun. At sunrise, under the alias Vivian Cole, I slipped through Novatech's side entrance in a borrowed tweed blazer and nondescript blouse. The lobby was empty save for a yawning security guard who barely glanced at my visitor badge. Hidden cameras above the reception desk captured my every move, feeding live footage to Nadia Vale's secure server. I checked my watch, 8:15 a.m., and took a seat on the modern couch, posture tense but composed. In my bag lay a polished resume booklet, complete with glowing references from fabricated industry insiders. I rehearsed my lines, a mix of genuine technical skill and strategic vulnerability. My heart pulsed with anticipation as I envisioned the moment they realized who they'd mocked. Moments later, 4 department heads filed out of the interview room, smirking and exchanging knowing glances. They had no idea their prey waited just feet away. They joked about outsider threat, calling candidates clueless and underqualified. I watched their every gesture through the one-way glass, each whispered insult documented by my concealed mic. "Did you see her shoes? Dollar store chic," Marcus Lee murmured, barely quiet enough for my recorder but loud enough to be undeniable. "She'll trip before the first sprint demo," Brandon Hart scoffed, leaning back in his designer chair. Their laughter echoed, a soundtrack of arrogance that fueled the dossier. When one manager named Elaine Morris emerged, hair perfectly coiffed and eyes full of false sympathy, she greeted me with a saccharine smile. "Vivian, welcome. We're eager to see what you bring." Her tone dripped with condescension. I offered a polite nod, stepping into the interview room with purpose. Inside, 4 seats waited behind a low conference table. Each executive sat with arms crossed, pens poised to mark failures. I activated my hidden pen recorder and placed a tiny camera discreetly on the table's edge. Nadia's grid lit up with 6 new feeds, each labeled with a name and timestamp. Through the next 40 minutes, I navigated basic coding questions and business case scenarios, deliberately making small errors they pounced on with relish. "That's not the algorithm we use," Fiona Wu snapped. "You clearly haven't led a team before," Caleb Turner added, eyes flicking to his phone. Each barb was a gem, preserved in crystal clarity. Their confidence swelled as they dismissed me, exchanging high fives when the session ended. I smiled, thanked them, and departed. As the door closed behind me, I sent a final ping to Nadia. "Phase complete. Infiltration data uploading." In those brief moments, I had become the perfect intruder, turning their mockery into the ammunition that would bring them down. After the executives dismissed me, I retreated to the lobby under the alias Vivian Cole. The modern chairs and abstract art did nothing to soothe my racing thoughts. I pressed the small recording device hidden in my bag, ensuring every second was immortalized. Across the room, Marcus Lee and Brandon Hart lounged near the coffee station, cups in hand. Their laughter cut through the foyer's quiet hum. "Can you believe she actually tried that coding exercise?" Marcus jeered, voice dripping with superiority. Brandon nodded, leaning in conspiratorially. "She must have Googled half those answers. Amateur hour." Elaine Morris, freshly coiffed and oblivious to the camera trained on her, joined them. "Poor thing," she said with faux pity. "She looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I almost felt sorry for her." Their cackles grew louder, ricocheting off the marble floors. I stood just beyond the glare of the lobby lights, feigning interest in a company brochure. Every word, every chuckle, fed the file labeled "Mockery Evidence." The hidden recorder captured their casual cruelty with perfect clarity. Nadia's live feed showed timestamps and names. Lee mocked my wardrobe. Hart ridiculed my resume. Morris sneered at my background. Brandon spotted me glancing in their direction and smirked. "Enjoying the show, Viv?" he called out, oblivious to the fact that Viv was the only one who truly saw them for who they were. I offered a small, polite smile and clutched my faux portfolio tighter. Just taking notes, I replied softly, voice laced with controlled calm. That offhand remark sent Brandon into another round of laughter. Elaine covered her mouth, pretending to stifle giggles. She's taking notes, Marcus repeated mockingly. Wonder what she'll do? Submit a complaint? Their collective amusement felt like a blade turning in a wound. When the receptionist buzzed, signaling my ride, I turned on my heel. I paused just long enough to send a final text. Lobby footage secured. Their laughter followed me to the glass doors as I stepped into the morning light. Outside, I exhaled slowly, the cool air a balm on my flushed cheeks. I tucked the recorder back into my bag, satisfaction blooming in my chest. They believed they'd humiliated a desperate applicant. They had no idea they'd just sealed their own fate. I slipped back through the boardroom door just as the clock struck 9. The 6 executives, Ethan Gray, Lucas Park, Owen Bennett, Caleb Price, Simon Hayes, and Damian Cole, sat clustered around the table, still drinking coffee and exchanging uneasy glances. I carried only a slim portfolio and a faint smile. Without a word, I tapped the remote on the table. The giant screen flickered, then split into 6 panels, each labeled with a name. Ethan Gray, Conspiracy and Misuse of Funds. Lucas Park, Data Manipulation and Fraudulent Metrics. Owen Bennett, Inflated Expenses and Embezzlement. Caleb Price, Intellectual Property Theft and Unauthorized Leaks. Simon Hayes, HR Violations and Complaint Suppression. Damian Cole, Legal Obstruction and Document Tampering. The room hushed. Ethan's hand froze mid-sip. Lucas leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Owen's face paled. Caleb's jaw tightened. Simon swallowed hard. Damian shifted in his seat, gripping his pen. One by one, video clips began to play in each panel. Lucas's metrics dashboard exploded with red flags and time-stamped edits. Owen's credit card statement scroll revealed headline expenses, charters, luxury hotels, phantom consulting fees. Caleb's screen showed proprietary schematics sent to a competitor email. Simon's messages flashed, ignore harassment complaint, delete file, no action needed. Damian's document log revealed shredded legal memos buried inside that very oak table. I opened the portfolio and laid out 6 crisp termination letters, each embossed with Arden Dynamics seal. I began with Lucas. Lucas Park, your employment is terminated effective immediately. I slid the letter across. His eyes darted to the panel, to the proof of his lies, then back to the envelope, trembling. Next was Owen. Owen Bennett, please collect your personal effects and vacate company premises. He stammered. Morgan, this can't. But I pressed on. Caleb's letter followed, sealing his fate. Simon's notice forced him upright, surprise giving way to resignation. Damian's termination left him fumbling, lawyerly defenses silenced by digital evidence. Finally, I faced Ethan Gray. He swallowed, voice cracking. Morgan, you can't do this. I placed his letter on the table. I already did. Every security badge on their lapels deactivated. I watched in calm satisfaction as their access revoked in real time. Their protests fell into silence when Nadia's voice crackled over the intercom. All exits secured. Security en route. I stepped back, the split screen still burning their offenses in the room's collective memory. Gentlemen, I said quietly, thank you for your service. Arden Dynamics will continue under new leadership, one built on accountability, not arrogance. They rose in stunned disbelief as I turned off the remote. The screens went dark. A new era began. The executives sat frozen as the doors swung open and the board of directors filed in, their faces a study in solemn expectation. Chairman Lorraine Whitaker led them, the others trailing behind, each director dressed in tailored suits, eyes sharp with purpose. Ethan Gray, Lucas Park, Owen Bennett, Caleb Price, Simon Hayes, and Damian Cole snapped to attention, as if they'd been caught mid-betrayal. The screen remained split, 6 windows each flashing damning proof. A spotlight of reality bore down on the 6 former power brokers. Ethan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the table edge. Lucas swallowed, beads of sweat forming at his hairline. Owen trembled, glancing from the screen to the doorway. Caleb's fists clenched so tightly his wrists strained. Simon's cheeks flushed crimson. Damian's mouth opened in a silent gasp. Chairman Whitaker stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We've witnessed everything," she said, glancing at the evidence behind me. Arden Dynamics was built on innovation, trust, and integrity. Today, we've seen how those values were betrayed. Her gaze swept the room. "Morgan, thank you for bringing this to light." I inclined my head. The board members took seats at a raised dais, turning their attention to the 6. A tense hush settled, broken only by the hum of projectors refreshing slides. Ethan Gray spoke first, voice quivering. "Chairman Whitaker, I understand the gravity of these allegations, but—" "No buts," Whitaker interrupted. "These are not allegations. These are documented actions." She tapped the podium, and the screen shifted to show side-by-side before and after snapshots. Financial statements with missing funds, email threads of conspiracy, HR complaints buried in digital trash. Each board member's expression hardened. What had been a charm offensive became grim assessment. Lucas Park tried to summon defiance. "This is a witch hunt. I never intended harm." His words were cut short by a board member scrolling through an investor letter Lucas falsified. "You almost tanked our Series C," said Director Annika Shah. "Explain why you inflated our projected growth by 40%. Lucas's face crumpled. He had no answer. Owen Bennett attempted a last-ditch plea. These were mistakes in the accounting system, not embezzlement." Director Michael Torres handed him a printed audit report. "Your so-called mistakes cost Arden over $2 million in unauthorized reimbursements." Owen's shoulders sank as reality closed in. Caleb Price rose, anger flaring. "You'll never find one piece of evidence that I leaked outright." He jabbed at the screen, but Director Priya Menon clicked a file labeled Caleb Leak DAO 421.mp4, and a confidential blueprint transfer played in loop. Caleb's hand dragging the schematic into an email headed Competing Corp at DOT. His face went ashen, lips parting, then clamping shut. Simon Hayes tried a feeble defense. "I only archived complaints. I wasn't in charge of HR policies." Director Shaw produced an internal memo. "Simon Hayes, Chapter 7. Complaints must be resolved within 30 days, not hidden." Simon's gaze dropped. Protocol had been breached under his watch. Damian Cole fumbled through legalese. "These documents are privileged communications." Director Torres leaned forward. "Privilege doesn't cover withholding material facts in litigation. You suppressed a memo that could have shielded us from liability." Damian's throat worked. The board's patience had evaporated. Chairman Whitaker rose, gaveling her hand on the podium. "Enough. We're here to restore Arden's reputation, not prolong this farce." She turned to me. "Morgan, do you recommend any further action?" I clicked the remote. The screen went dark, then illuminated with a single line: "Immediate termination for cause." Beneath, each executive's face appeared alongside the word "terminated." The board members nodded in silent consensus. "Effective immediately," Whitaker declared. "These individuals are removed from all roles, barred from company property, and subject to legal review. We will cooperate fully with regulators and reassign responsibilities to our interim team." She pressed a button, and security personnel emerged from side doors to stand behind each terminated executive. The 6 rose in stunned compliance as security gently guided them toward the exit. Ethan lingered. eyes meeting mine for a final charged moment. No words passed, only the realization that his empire had crumbled beneath him. As the door closed behind them, the boardroom exhaled. Whitaker turned to me and offered a rare smile. "Welcome, Morgan Pierce, as our active CEO." Applause rippled through the room, tentative, then resolute. I rose and addressed the directors. "Thank you for your trust. Arden Dynamics will rebuild on transparency, accountability, and respect." The board members exchanged approving glances. Cameras flashed, internal communications capturing the moment for posterity. In that charged silence, the final reckoning ended and the true work began, forging a new Arden Dynamics, cleansed of betrayal, strengthened by truth. In the days that followed the purge, the fallout was immediate and unrelenting. Regulatory agencies opened formal investigations into the fraud and misconduct unearthed in the boardroom. The SEC subpoenaed expense reports and trading logs. The Department of Justice sent auditors to review patent filings and intellectual property transfers. News outlets ran daily updates under headlines like "Arden Dynamics Scandal" and "Ghost CEO Exposes Silicon Valley Corruption," driving a maelstrom of scrutiny around every corner of the company. Yet as the legal storm swirled, Arden Dynamics found its footing for the first time in years. Nadia Vale, now Chief Technology Officer, spearheaded an internal audit that validated the integrity of our remaining projects. Mid-level managers, once sidelined by the old guard, stepped up to lead cross-functional teams, revitalizing product roadmaps and proving that talent had been waiting in the wings all along. Within 2 weeks, development milestones previously derailed under Caleb Price's secrecy were back on track, and clients began to rebuild trust. Investor confidence returned even faster. Revisions to our corporate bylaws, made public in a transparent shareholder memo, introduced quarterly ethics reviews, an anonymous whistleblower hotline, and mandatory compliance training. Stockholders praised the swift action, driving Arden's share price up 15% above its pre-scandal dip. In board meetings now open to employee observers, morale soared. Teams that had operated in fear now collaborated openly, crafting innovations that reflected Arden's renewed commitment to integrity. Meanwhile, the 6 former executives faced their own reckoning. Lucas Park's embezzlement charges led to a criminal indictment, and he surrendered his assets in a plea deal. Owen Bennett negotiated a settlement that included full restitution of misappropriated funds. Caleb Price's IP theft triggered civil suits from clients who demanded compensation for leaked trade secrets. Simon Hayes lost his HR license and now consults on rebuilding workplace culture. An ironic twist, given his role in the cover-ups. Damian Cole's law license suspension became permanent after an ethics tribunal determined he had systematically obstructed justice. Ethan Gray left the company with a non-compete and minimal severance. Cast out from Silicon Valley's inner circles, he resurfaced months later as a junior advisor at a small consultancy, his LinkedIn profile a cautionary tale of pride undone by betrayal. He contacted former colleagues for reference, only to discover that Arden's new leadership had anonymously informed every major firm of his misconduct. In our own halls, the transformation was profound. Quarterly surveys showed employee engagement at record highs. Innovation pipelines, once clogged by secrecy, burst with breakthrough ideas. Client retention rates climbed. Arden Dynamics had not only survived its darkest hour, it emerged stronger, cleansed by accountability, and united by a culture that valued transparency above all else. The true consequence of that boardroom purge was a company reborn, guided by the simple principle that integrity is the foundation of lasting success. Arden Dynamics' rebirth proves that no conspiracy of arrogance can withstand the steady force of accountability. What began as a secret empire forged in shadows has become a beacon of transparency and resilience. When the quietest player in the room reveals her true power, the entire board must reckon with the truth. Our purge was not merely an act of vengeance. It was a declaration that corporate culture must elevate integrity over ego, collaboration over cruelty. If you've ever been underestimated, sidelined, or silenced, remember Morgan Pierce's lesson. Patience and preparation can turn the tables on even the most confident adversaries. Your strength lies not in loud declarations, but in the clarity of your vision and the precision of your strategy. When you build your empire with principles, no amount of mockery or backroom plotting can destroy what you've built. Thank you for joining this deep dive into Arden Dynamics' dramatic transformation. If this story resonated, if you've faced similar challenges or found inspiration in Morgan's journey, subscribe for more tales of strategic triumph and corporate intrigue. Hit the like button to support our channel and leave a comment sharing your own experiences of quiet power and ultimate vindication. What moves did you make when the world underestimated you? Let's start a conversation. Stay vigilant, stay strategic, and never let anyone define your worth. The next time you find yourself in a room full of doubters, remember that real influence often lurks behind the scenes, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. We'll see you in the comments, and as always, keep building, keep innovating, and keep rewriting your own ending.